Do you remember the mix of fascination and danger from toys from the 1960s? Like blowing super elastic bubbles, creating creepy crawlers with the burning hot thing maker, or the swinging clackers. Trust me, even you might be surprised by the danger of these toys. Which one of these did you have as a kid? Lawn darts. Picture this. A warm summer evening. The scent of barbecue floating through the air as Dad cracks open a cold one. You and your siblings would grab those oversized darts with their weighted metal tips, taking turns tossing them high into the fading daylight, the thrill of watching them arc through the sky before landing with a satisfying thud in the plastic ring. But those same heavy metal tips that made darts so exciting also sent thousands of kids to the emergency room. After numerous skull fractures and even deaths, these backyard missiles were finally banned in 1988, transforming from summer staple to cautionary tale. But let's hear about another dangerous toy from the 60s, Swing Wing. Remember twirling around the yard with this plastic hat and rope contraption strapped to your head? The commercial made it look so easy. Just swing your head and watch the colorful propellers spin. What a rush of dizzying freedom as you whipped your neck around faster and faster. But that same neck-snapping motion led to sprains, strains, and worse. Parents started reporting headaches, neck injuries, and even some cases of whiplash in their little ones. By the early 1970s, this head spinner had disappeared from toy shelves, leaving behind a generation with peculiar memories of voluntary, self-inflicted vertigo. Six Finger.
It's Six Finger! It looks like a finger, but watch 'em flip. It's a secret weapon at your fingertip. Just point and fire. Six Finger sends an SOS missile to your friends.
Six Finger, Six Finger, Six Finger!
Fires cap-loaded bombs.
That catchy jingle was burned into our brains as we begged for this extra digit that shot caps, darts, and secret messages. Slipping it onto your hand made you feel like a spy with special powers. The neighborhood kids would gather around as you demonstrated your arsenal of tricks. The problem? Those caps and darts could cause eye injuries, and the toy itself was essentially training kids to think guns were fun. When concerns about toy weapons grew in the late 60s, Six Finger quietly vanished, though the jingle still echoes in our collective memory. And now, let's hear about a favorite of mine from that time. I am sure you remember this one. Atomic Energy Lab Kit. In those optimistic post-war years, what could be more exciting than your very own nuclear lab? This deluxe educational set came with actual radioactive materials, uranium ore, polonium, and radium, all packaged in a handsome wooden case. Kids could perform real experiments while Mom was busy making Jell-O molds in the kitchen. For $49.50, a small fortune in 1960s dollars, junior scientists could detect radiation and watch the cloud chamber in action. Unsurprisingly, giving children access to radioactive materials eventually seemed like a bad idea, and the kit was pulled from shelves, though not before creating a generation of budding nuclear physicists. But wait until we get to the even more dangerous toys. Super elastic bubble plastic.
Squeeze it out and blow it up.
Super elastic bubble plastic!
Amazing plastic bubbles from a tube.
Super elastic bubble plastic!
Secret magic plastic makes them last.
Super elastic
The magical goop that lets you blow bubbles as big as your head. Remember that distinctive chemical smell as you squeezed the tube onto the straw, then puffed your cheeks until a shimmering, rainbow-colored orb appeared. Those giant bubbles would bounce and float around the room like something from a sci-fi movie. What we didn't know was that the main ingredient, polyvinyl acetate, contained toxic chemicals that could cause everything from dizziness to unconsciousness when inhaled. After numerous reports of children passing out, this beloved bubble maker was reformulated, though nothing ever captured the mesmerizing quality of those original toxic spheres. Little Lady Stove. Oh, the hours you'd spend in your play kitchen, mimicking Mom as she prepared dinner. The Little Lady Stove was the crown jewel of any girl's playroom, a miniature version of the real thing, complete with working burners that actually heated up. Can you still recall that warm metal smell as the heating elements glowed orange? Your tiny fingers would arrange the miniature pots and pans, cooking elaborate meals for your dolls and stuffed animals. But those 100-watt bulbs inside could reach temperatures of 600 degrees, leading to nasty burns and even house fires. By the late 1960s, this beloved toy had been unplugged for good, leaving behind both cherished memories and painful scars. Let's hear about another dangerous toy from that time. I am sure you will remember this one. Clackers. Those mesmerizing acrylic balls that swung from a string, clicking together with a satisfying clack, clack, clack that could be heard houses away. Remember the playground competitions to see who could keep them going the longest? Your wrists would ache, but you'd persist until you achieved that perfect rhythm, the translucent spheres becoming a blur of motion. But those same hard acrylic balls were essentially unregulated projectiles. They'd shatter into sharp shards, causing eye injuries and cuts. By 1971, the original glass and acrylic versions were pulled from shelves, though softer plastic versions would make occasional comebacks, never quite capturing the dangerous thrill of the originals. Blow ball. How exotic this seemed in suburban America, a game where you'd blow into a mouthpiece to keep a small wooden or plastic ball suspended in the air. The whole family would gather around, faces turning red as you competed to see who could keep the ball aloft the longest. What could be more innocent? People also go dizzy from all the blowing. And well, it turns out that sharing mouthpieces among multiple players created a perfect storm for germ transmission. After outbreaks of everything from common colds to more serious infections, this seemingly harmless game quietly disappeared from toy shelves. Who knew that something as simple as blowing could be so hazardous? Chemistry sets with real chemicals. The mysterious wooden case filled with glass vials, strange powders, and the promise of spectacular reactions. Remember, setting up your lab in the basement or garage, carefully following instructions to create colorful smoke, bubbling concoctions, and sometimes even small explosions. These weren't today's watered-down versions. These sets contained real chemicals like potassium nitrate, ammonium nitrate, and even small amounts of radioactive materials. As concerns grew about children creating potentially dangerous compounds, and a few house fires later, these chemistry sets were gradually neutered until they barely resembled their powerful predecessors, taking with them a generation's introduction to the wonders of science, metal-tipped arrows for archery sets. Remember the thrill when you first opened that archery set on Christmas morning? The smooth wooden bow, the feathered arrows with actual metal tips. This wasn't some plastic toy, but a real boy and arrow that made you feel like Robin Hood or one of those Olympic archers you'd seen on TV. The satisfying twang of the bowstring, the whistle of the arrow cutting through backyard air, landing with a solid thunk in the target, or, let's be honest, sometimes the fence. What your parents didn't fully appreciate was that those metal tips could penetrate skin, not just cardboard. After numerous injuries, some quite serious, these were gradually replaced with safer rubber-tipped versions. The neighborhood games of William Tell might have disappeared, but the scars some kids got remained permanent souvenirs. Mr. Machine.
Here he comes, greatest toy you've ever seen, and his name is Mr. Machine. He is real, and for you he is ideal, and his name is Mr. Machine.
That clear plastic robot with the giant wind-up key mesmerized us for hours. Remember cranking that oversized key and watching his internal gears move visibly through his transparent body? With each step, he'd ring his bell, blow his whistle, and roll his eyes in a hypnotic, mechanical dance across the living room floor. What made Mr. Machine so fascinating was that you could take him apart and, theoretically, put him back together. All those gears, springs, and small parts were an invitation to exploration. But those same small parts became choking hazards, and the original design had breakable parts that could create sharp edges. After several redesigns attempting to make him safer, the original Mr. Machine walked his way into toy history, though his catchy jingle still plays in many of our heads. Belt-buckle derringers. Nothing made a kid feel more like a secret agent or Western outlaw than these miniature pistols disguised as ordinary belt buckles. With a quick flick, your innocent-looking belt transformed into a cap gun that could surprise friends or imaginary enemies. You'd wear it to school, feeling deliciously sneaky, knowing you had a concealed weapon that teachers wouldn't notice. As concerns about toy weapons in schools grew, and after several playground incidents that ended in tears, these deceptive devices were pulled from stores. Today's kids might have video games, but they'll never know the rush of quietly adjusting your belt at recess, preparing for an imaginary showdown while the playground monitor looked the other way. Water Wiggle. Remember that wild, unpredictable water toy that hooked to your garden hose and danced across the lawn like a possessed snake? On sweltering summer afternoons, the Water Wiggle brought squeals of delight as kids tried to dodge its frantic movements. The colorful head would whip around unpredictably, spraying water in all directions while we laughed and tried to catch it. But that same unpredictable motion made it dangerous. The hard plastic head could hit with surprising force, causing black eyes, broken noses, and even more serious head injuries. After a tragic incident in 1978 when the toy's head came off and caused a child to drown, the original Water Wiggle was pulled from production, though its memory lives on in countless summery backyard movies captured on Super 8 films. Did you have one, or maybe even several of these toys back then? Slip and Slide.
Whammo Slip and Slide. It's unbelievable, and it's for you. It's new. It's magic. Just unroll the Whammo Slip and Slide. Hook up to any water faucet, and the magic surface goes to work. It's fast. It's easy. You glide on a thin film of water, and it makes you go like a jet. Girls glide as well as boys.
Slip and Slide wasn't just a toy. It was a rite of passage for kids growing up in the 1960s. On those blistering summer afternoons, you'd hear the unmistakable sound of the garden hose gushing as Mom or Dad laid out that long, gleaming strip of yellow plastic across the lawn. The excitement built as you and your friends took turns sprinting full speed, launching yourselves belly first onto the slick surface, shrieking with joy as you slid through the cool water. But as thrilling as it was, Slip and Slide had a mischievous side. Hidden rocks beneath the tarp turned minor tumbles into skinned knees, and if you didn't hit the slide just right, you might come to an abrupt and painful halt. Despite the occasional wipeout, it was pure, unfiltered childhood fun. By the late 60s and early 70s, the dangers became more apparent, particularly when older kids or adults attempted to join in. Those unexpected jolts led to injuries, prompting manufacturers to add warnings and instructions on proper use. But for kids of the era, nothing beat the exhilarating freedom of a slip and slide on a sweltering summer day. Did you have a slip and slide back then? Johnny Reb Cannon.
The cannon's name is Johnny Reb. Hurrah, hurrah! Give him a hearty welcome then. Hurrah, hurrah! Oh, men will cheer, boys will shout, the ladies they will all turn out, and we'll all feel gay when
that Christmas morning when you unwrapped the gray metal cannon that actually fired. Remember loading those spring-loaded shells, the satisfying K-thunk as they launched across the living room? Suddenly, every backyard battle became epic. Your little green army men never stood a chance. But those same projectiles that brought such joy also caused countless eye injuries when fired at close range at unsuspecting siblings. After numerous emergency room visits and parental complaints, these miniature artillery pieces were silenced, leaving only memories of neighborhood battles and unfortunate friendly fire incidents. Did you have one of those? Sky dancers.
Sky dancers! They're flying! Fly for me, just for me, sky dancers dance for me. Wow, they really fly! Come to me, dance for me, sky dancers fly for me.
Remember the magical moment when you'd pull the ripcord and your beautiful fairy doll would suddenly take flight, spinning gracefully toward the ceiling? Those colorful wings whirring as she soared in unpredictable patterns. What could be more enchanting? But those same random flight patterns sent thousands of children and parents to emergency rooms with facial lacerations and eye injuries. After millions were recalled in 2000, these beloved flying fairies became collector's items, their once innocent flight now recognized as a dangerous dance of hard plastic wings and unexpected trajectories. Wamo Air Blaster.
the mighty power of wind is in the new amazing powerful air blaster by Whammo! Look out! What's that? Get ready!
The satisfying whoosh as you pulled the trigger, sending a powerful ring of air across the room to knock over your carefully arranged army men. Remember the games of stealth attack, sneaking up on unsuspecting siblings to blast their hair into wild disarray? But when aimed at the ear, this innocent-seeming toy could rupture eardrums and cause permanent hearing damage. After numerous complaints, the original high-powered version disappeared from toy shelves, though weaker imitations would follow, never quite capturing that dangerous thrill of the genuine article. Bop bag. Remember those inflatable punching bags with the weighted bottom that bounced back for more? The rubbery smell would fill your nostrils as you unleashed a flurry of punches, watching Bozo or the clown's painted face distort with each hit, only to wobble upright again with that distinctive squeak. Parents thought they were channeling aggression safely, but those hard plastic bases caused countless toe breaks and ankle sprains when little feet collided with them. The original heavy versions were eventually replaced with lighter models, though nothing matched the satisfaction of knocking down that first-generation bop bag, and nothing matched the pain of stubbing your toe on its unforgiving base. I remember that just too well. Zulu blowgun. Remember bringing the exotic into your suburban backyard with those colorful plastic dart guns? The thrill of pressing your lips against that tube, feeling the rubber mouthpiece against your skin as you took a deep breath. That satisfying whoosh as you exhaled and watched your dart sail across the yard. Neighborhood kids would gather for safaris through the hydrangea jungle, hunting imaginary big game, while parents chatted over backyard fences. But those same darts that brought such joy became dangerous projectiles, especially when curious kids decided to upgrade them with pins or needles. After eye injuries and choking incidents, these backyard blowguns were quietly removed from toy shelves, though the memories of those neighborhood hunting expeditions remain vivid in our minds. What was your childhood toy back then? Share it with us in the comments below. Vac-U-Form?
Here's what a vacuum form can do. Look at the things it'll make for you. One kit you buy will fill a zoo, and this new kit makes trucks for you. That's what a vacuum form can do.
The magical machine that let you become a plastic factory right at your kitchen table. Remember the anticipation as you watched that plastic sheet soften under the heating element, then the satisfying whoosh as you pulled the lever, creating perfect vacuum-formed toys. The distinctive smell of hot styrene filled the room as you made tiny boats, cars, and creatures. But third-degree burns from the 350-degree heating element and fingers caught in the vacuum mechanism eventually led to its demise. By the mid-1970s, this miniature manufacturing plant was gone from shelves, though the little plastic treasures it created still lurk in many attics, preserved like amber time capsules. Thingmaker.
You can make all kinds of lovely things like these with Mattel's wonderful Thingmaker. It makes creepy crawlers, spiders, lizards, snakes, dragonflies. Make them yourself with this nice plastic goop.
The intoxicating smell of burning plastic would fill your bedroom as you squeezed that gooey plastigoop into metal molds, watching with fascination as the scorching hot plate transformed it into wiggly creatures. Remember peeling those rubbery bugs from the molds, still warm and smelling of childhood chemistry? That sense of power as you created an army of monsters was thrilling, almost as intoxicating as the fumes it produced. You'd scatter them around the house, delighting in Mom's shrieks when she found a spider on her pillow. But those heating elements reached 350-plus degrees, leaving countless children with serious burns on curious fingers. By the 1970s, the original high-temperature version had disappeared, taking with it that distinctive hot plastic aroma that still triggers both nostalgic memories and slight nausea in equal measure. Do you also still have scars from those burns? Fanner 50 cap guns.
You are watching a demonstration of the most authentic cap pistol in the world. It has exclusive fanning action and shoots safe shooting shells with greeny stickum cap.
The weight of that die-cast metal six-shooter in your hand, the distinctive smell of spent caps lingering in the air as you fanned the hammer, filling the backyard with rapid-fire pops. You'd strap on your holster, becoming the quickest draw in the neighborhood, replaying shootouts from your favorite TV westerns. But those metal-framed guns were essentially weapons themselves, heavy enough to cause serious harm, when neighborhood disputes erupted into unexpected pistol-whipping incidents. As concerns about realistic toy weapons grew through the 1960s, these heavy metal arsenals were gradually replaced with lighter plastic versions, forever changing the backyard western landscape. Jolly Chimp. Remember winding up that little monkey with the cymbals, his eerie smile growing wider as the mechanism inside wound tighter? There was something both fascinating and slightly unsettling about his painted face, those glassy eyes that seemed to follow you around the room. As he clapped his cymbals together with mechanical precision, you'd feel both delighted and vaguely disturbed. But those wind-up mechanisms contained springs that could snap fingers, and those metal cymbals had sharp edges that left many children with unexpected cuts. By the 1970s, safety regulations had tamed the Jolly Chimp, though his slightly sinister smile lives on in our collective nightmares. Next up, the swing bikes.
Folks, you don't understand. This is a special bike.
Special?
Very special. It's a swing bike. Not only the front wheel moves, but watch this. The back wheel moves.
The freedom you felt on that bizarre bicycle with the swiveling frame. Remember how the back wheel could pivot independently, letting you perform stunts that made normal bikes seem boring? The feeling of mastery as you finally learned to control that wild back end, weaving through the neighborhood like a two-wheeled daredevil. But that same unpredictable movement sent countless kids to emergency rooms with broken bones and concussions. The original designs were simply too dangerous for children, causing the most extreme versions to disappear by the mid-1970s. Today's parents would never let their kids ride something so wonderfully, if you ask me. Super Ball.
Super Ball! Look, it's almost alive. It bounces and bounces, keeps going and going almost forever. Hurry, try and catch it. Super Ball is a mystery ball of 1,000 bounces, with many more bounces than any ball you ever owned.
That amazing sphere of compressed rubber that could bounce from the sidewalk to over a house. Remember the solid heft in your hand? The way it seemed to contain impossible energy? You'd drop it in the kitchen and watch Mom jump as it ricocheted wildly around the room, knocking over lamps and narrowly missing windows. Those unpredictable bounces were part of the magic and the danger. When they hit someone in the eye or face, these dense rubber missiles caused serious injuries. While never officially banned, the original, dangerously bouncy formulation was gradually modified, leaving behind only the memory of that first-generation ball that seemed to defy physics itself. Magic 8 Ball. That mysterious black orb filled with dark blue liquid and answers to life's most pressing childhood questions. Remember shaking it vigorously, then turning it over with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. Will Jimmy ask me to the dance? Will I pass my math test? The quiet thrill as the answer slowly floated into view through that little window. But the combination of glass prediction window and toxic chemicals inside led to injuries when curious kids inevitably broke them open. The original version contained chemicals that would never pass today's safety standards, though modern versions with plastic windows and safer fluids still promise to predict uncertain futures. Hippity Hop Ball. Those giant rubber balls with handles that transformed an ordinary kid into a bouncing champion. Remember the distinctive rubber smell? The way your legs would ache as you hopped from house to house, racing friends down the sidewalk. You felt invincible, bouncing higher and faster, until suddenly you weren't. Those handles snapped off at the most inopportune moments, sending children face first into concrete. The early versions had handles that weren't properly reinforced, leading to countless broken arms, bloody noses, and chipped teeth. Modern versions are safer, but nothing compares to that first-generation thrill ride that was one bounce away from disaster. Gilbert U. 238 Atomic Energy Lab. Remember when science was dangerous and exciting? Back in those optimistic post-war years? What better gift than your very own nuclear laboratory? You'd carefully handle those genuine uranium ore samples, watching the cloud chamber reveal invisible cosmic rays while the Geiger counter clicked away ominously in your bedroom. For $49.50, a small fortune back then, you became a junior scientist in the atomic age, conducting experiments with real radioactive materials while Mom made dinner downstairs. But giving children actual uranium eventually seemed unwise, even in those radiation-friendly times. Even though it was banned earlier, I still remember seeing it around until the 1960s. Which of these toys is the most dangerous toy in your eyes? Share it with us in the comments below.